Hey everyone, and welcome. This is a special highlights edition brought to you by our friends at Micky. We've taken a really fascinating sip and talk discussion and boiled it down to the absolute core insights for you. So let's just jump right in.
So have you ever been using an AI like ChatGPT and just felt like something was a bit off? I mean, yeah, it's incredibly smart, but it's missing that, that local nuance, that cultural vibe. Well, that feeling is actually the starting point for a huge global conversation.
And it turns out that feeling of a missing local flavor is driving this massive global trend, the race for something called sovereign AI. And this isn't just about making AI feel more local. For a lot of countries, this is about national security and their entire economic destiny.
Okay, so what in the world is sovereign AI? Well, if you strip it all down, it comes down to one word: control. It's about a nation being able to build and run its own AI on its own terms, using its own data on its own computer systems, without having to rely on any foreign company or country.
Now, what's really driving this? Why is everybody from the EU to the UAE pouring billions of dollars into this? Well, it boils down to four key things: protecting their own private data and national security, gaining technological and economic independence, creating AI that actually gets their culture and language, and, let's be honest, good old-fashioned geopolitical competition. For the longest time, building a national-level AI model from scratch was just way too expensive and complicated for most countries. But a new service that came up in the discussion is a total game changer. It's from AWS, and it's called NovaForge.
So how does it work? Through this really clever process called mid-training. Think about it like you're buying a car. Instead of having to build the whole thing yourself, AWS hands you a car that's already 80% built. It's got the engine, the chassis, the whole frame. Then you take it into your own garage and you add the final 20%, your own private data, your own security features, your own cultural tuning. You end up with a custom, sovereign car for a fraction of the time and money.
Now that sounds like a perfect solution, doesn't it? A brilliant shortcut for any country that wants to build its own AI. But, like with pretty much everything in technology and politics, there's always a catch. There's a hidden dependency here. And here's the crucial point. While you get to control that final 20%, that custom finish, the first 80%, the core engine, the fundamental architecture of the car, that was still designed and built by someone else. So that fundamental dependency on the original technology, it never really goes away.
This really lays out the trade-off perfectly. What's being claimed is a truly independent sovereign AI. But the reality? It's a highly customized foreign model. It's a smart, practical shortcut, for sure, but it's not the final stop if true technological independence is your goal.
Okay, let's pivot now from the theory of sovereign AI to a really fascinating real-world case study. This is where the push for tech dominance creates this huge internal conflict. We're talking about China's robot army. And the scale of this is just mind-boggling. China has over 1 million industrial robots up and running right now. That is more than 40% of all the industrial robots in the entire world. The official line is that this is all to solve a labor shortage, but that's where this story starts to get weird.
So how can a country claim to have a massive labor shortage and at the exact same time have one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the world, hovering around 18%? It doesn't make sense, right? This contradiction is what's being called the robot paradox.
And this paradox really comes down to three big things. First, there's a huge skills mismatch. They need people who can manage the robots, but they have way too many low-skilled workers who are being replaced by them. Second, young people today just don't want those old-school factory jobs. And third, you've got this squeezing out effect, where automation is just kicking millions of people out of their jobs, putting incredible pressure on them to find something new.
So this all leads to the ultimate question that was raised in the discussion. With this giant technological leap forward, who really faces the biggest threat from China's robot army? Is it the rest of the world, or is it the Chinese people themselves?
So, from an international point of view, the worries are mostly about economics and geopolitics. The world is worried about these super efficient factories flooding the market with cheap stuff, about it becoming impossible to move supply chains away from China, and of course the potential for all this civilian tech to be used by the military.
But the risks inside the country? You could argue they're way more severe. We're talking about the possibility of mass unemployment, a youth job crisis that gets even worse, a wealth gap that widens into a canyon, and the very real threat of social instability if millions of people feel like they've been left behind. So, the final conclusion from the discussion was this. While the global risks are real, they can be managed with things like policy and trade deals. The internal risk, on the other hand, is much more fundamental. It's described as implosive and disruptive, something that could shake the very social fabric of the country.
And that leaves us with this one last, really provocative question to think about. When a nation goes all in on an AI and automation strategy, is its success a triumph for the country as a whole, or does it risk creating a massive crisis for its own people?
If this got you thinking, you've really got to hear the full, in-depth conversation. It's waiting for you on the Sip&Talk podcast. We've put the link and a link to our sponsor Micky's channel right down in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.